Many people think that eating a plant-based diet will be too expensive, so they don't do it or give up soon afterwards. But eating plant-based can be enjoyable and cost-saving if you know what money-saving tips and strategies to use. So how do you do that with green beans? I'm excited to share that with you today. In this episode, I'll tell you about the results of an experiment I did last fall to figure out the best way to store green beans after bringing them back from the store, so you can get the most out of them with less waste. So if you want to learn one smart way to make eating plant-based on a budget possible, even with rising food prices, join me on the inside. Welcome to the Plant-Based Eating Made Easy podcast. I'm your host, Anna Zinn, plant-based registered dietitian and transition coach. Hi friend, do you want to regain your health with plant-based eating but feel overwhelmed and lost about how to do it? Do you feel it'll be hard to change your meat-heavy diet and impossible with working, running the home, or chasing after the grandkids? If so, you're in the right place. Here you'll find simple strategies, clear nutrition guidance, and practical tips to help you thrive plant-powered with more energy. So if you're ready to ditch the guesswork and transform your health the stress-free way, cozy up now with a hot cup of tea or listen while you walk, and let me show you how doable plant-based eating can be. Let's do this. For many, knowing how to store fresh produce is an art and skill learned through experience and from advice gathered from family and friends. Well, I am no different. It's something I've learned much about already, but that I am still learning about. What makes it more challenging is the fact that different produce have different storing preferences and that there are so many fruits and vegetables out there in the plant-based world. A year or two ago, I was at the store and saw green beans on sale. I was ecstatic because one of my daughter's favorite vegetables is green beans. So I picked a bunch of delicious-looking fresh and slender green beans, put them into a store plastic bag, and brought them home. Then I chucked this bag into the produce drawer in the fridge and promptly forgot about them. Life was busy and I was trying to use up other expiring fresh produce at the time. Well, imagine my shock a week later when I rediscovered this bag at the bottom of the produce drawer. They were still in the clear grocery plastic bag, but the inside of the bag was moist and wet, and some of the green beans now had a bit of white fuzzy mold on them. I was so disappointed at myself for letting this happen and for not cooking them sooner. I couldn't believe I had now wasted money and missed out on the full enjoyment of these green beans as a result. Though I managed to salvage about half of the green beans that day and cook them up immediately, I was still disappointed and frustrated at myself for not using them sooner and for not storing them better. Have you had an experience like this? Well, after that incident, I was definitely more careful with my future store-bought green beans. I even spent time online looking at blogs and help articles to figure out a better storing solution. But most of the advice I found wasn't very helpful and didn't work, at least not in my case. The advice from many web articles was just to put the green beans into a bag and to store them in the fridge. Well, that definitely didn't work for me because I found the green beans just gathered moisture within the bag from all the condensation forming on them, even though I had put them in the produce drawer at the bottom of the fridge. That's why, out of frustration, I set out on a mission a few months ago to figure it out myself, once and for all, what the best ways were to help the green beans I buy stay in good condition. So let me tell you what I did and the results so you can use these smart produce stretching hacks yourself. This is what I did. Last fall, I purposely bought and brought home a bunch of fresh green beans, even though it was expensive at the time. But I still bought them because I was on a mission to help not just our family, but those in my community, meaning you as well. So I brought a bunch of fresh green beans home and then cut off any already decaying ends. Then I split the green beans into 5 smaller bunches and put them in different experimental conditions. For the first bunch, I only wrapped them in a piece of paper towel, then put the whole thing in a sealed plastic bag. For the second bunch, I rolled the green beans up in a sheet of newspaper and taped the end part so it held together into a neat package. For the third bunch, I wrapped a small bunch of green beans up in a piece of paper towel, then wrapped the whole thing in newspaper. For the fourth bunch, I wrapped the green beans up in a piece of newspaper and then put the newspaper package in a zip plastic bag. And finally, for the fifth bunch, I washed them, then patted them dry before wrapping them up tightly in plastic wrap and popping this fifth bundle in the freezer. I know, I went a little overboard, but I wanted to be thorough in this experiment. You may be wondering, why all these layers? It's because I knew from past failed attempts that green beans love to stay dry, so I was trying to do my best to help them do that in the fridge. The results? Well, after 10 days of being untouched in the fridge and freezer, I took these bunches out, opened the packages, and examined them, and this is what I found. For test number 1, with the bunch wrapped in a piece of paper towel and then in a plastic bag, it did not work well at all. In fact, this might have been the worst of the bunches tested. The paper towel was moist, and in it the beans had turned all moldy with decaying ends. All of those green beans got tossed in the trash. For group number 2, the ones wrapped in newspaper, they fared better. The green beans had stayed dry, and there was just a tiny bit of mold on the tip of one bean. But lots of brown spots had developed on the beans, so they didn't look very appetizing. I was, however, able to salvage 10 out of 30 green beans that were decent looking, so that would be a third rescue from the bunch, or 33%. The beans in group 3 were wrapped in a piece of paper towel and then in newspaper. The paper towel didn't seem to help much, except perhaps in causing the green beans to develop slightly less brown spots. But there also seemed to be a bit more white fuzzy mold as well on some of the beans. So out of 21 pieces, I could only salvage about 6 green beans, which would be slightly less than that from group 2. Group number 4's beans were wrapped in a piece of newspaper, and this bundle was then placed into a plastic bag. As it turned out, this was not a good idea. The newspaper had become all soft and moist, and then when I opened the newspaper bundle, I found that the green beans inside had turned mostly moldy, though they didn't have as many brown spots. In the end, I could only save a portion from 3 pieces out of 16 pieces, so this is definitely not a good storing option. And the fifth group that went into the freezer? These came out beautifully in terms of there being no mold or brown spots. But, of course, as they thawed, they became soft. So this method will work well if you're just planning to throw them into a soup, casserole, or stew. Just don't plan to eat them raw. So here's what I learned from this whole experiment. Green beans really like to be dry, so wrapping them in paper towel and putting them into a bag won't work. Neither will putting them in newspaper and then putting them into a sealed bag. What seems to work better is to just wrap the dry green beans in newspaper in a bundle and pop that bundle in the produce drawer, as this seems to create a more breathable, drier environment. But even if you use this method, I would recommend to still use the stored green beans up within 5 days. But in all cases, check them over once you bring them home from the store and snip off any already decaying ends first before storing them away. Now, if you plan to store them for longer, like for more than 5 days, I would recommend washing, patting dry, and then freezing the green beans. This works if you don't plan to eat them raw, but will be cooking them in some way in the future. So today we looked at how to get the most out of the fresh green beans you buy or harvest. The key is this: green beans like dryness, so anything you can do to keep them dry will go a long way to helping them stay fresh. Now here's an action step to take. The next time you go grocery shopping and decide to bring home a bunch of fresh green beans, try out one or more of the produce stretching hacks discussed today to make them last longer. I hope today's episode will help you save money through less food wastage so you can enjoy plant-based eating on a budget. My husband came to me recently telling me that it's getting too expensive to eat plant-based, mainly due to the rising price of soy milk and other plant-based milks at our local grocery store. It's true that the cost of these milks was rising, but then I reminded him of a myriad of other ways that we were saving money eating this way, such as buying shelf-stable dried beans and whole grains, and not needing to buy raw meats and other animal-based foods that were also rising in prices. But what I didn't get to tell him was this. There are also multiple ways to save at the store when buying plant-based foods, and easy hacks you can use at home to get the most out of your produce and minimize food wastage. These will all go a long way towards stretching your shopping dollars so you can save more money in the long run. So friend, if you want to learn how to eat plant-based in ways that won't break the bank, I invite you to join the online Plant Power Life Transformation course. This 6-module online course will teach you the tips and tricks you need to confidently eat plant-based on a budget, with tasty, easy to make, yet affordable plant-based recipes using commonly available ingredients. You'll walk away not only mastering the basics of plant-based eating with practical strategies and essential skills, but also learn produce stretching and money-saving hacks to help you start and thrive eating plant-powered, while saving money, time, and energy. Get more details about this course at plantnourish.com/PPLT course or see the link in the show notes. Thank you for listening to the Plant-Based Eating Made Easy podcast. If this podcast has helped you, please take a moment to rate and leave a written review on the Apple Podcast app or on iTunes. Knowing how this podcast has made a difference in your life never fails to light me up. I may also select your review to be read on the show. Remember that moving to plant-based eating can be simple and doable, even with your existing health challenges and busy lifestyle. If you have a plant-based diet question you'd like me to answer on this show, share that question with me using the contact options in the show notes. Thanks for joining me today, and I can't wait to connect with you again in the next episode. Until next time, keep plant-focused and thriving, my friend.